Hello, my friends. I am Muhammad Al Abbas. I am from Saudi Arabia and I am studying in Multimedia University in Malaysia. Today, our topic about open source. What is mean open source? And what is the advantage and disadvantage for this source? We will learn this together in our presentation. In my presentation, just an attention, please, please, please be safe. Let's start our presentation. Let's start with the meaning of open source. Actually, the open source, from the names, that mean open. In protection and developer, open source is possibility or methodology that permit free expression and access to the product, design or idea and implementation details. That's mean open source for everyone. What is mean free? Let's see open as in free. What is else? In access and over time. Open as in not close. What is mean close? Close, for example, Windows. Can anyone open the code for the Windows and play with it, edit, modify it, or delete it? No. If it is not developer, cannot open the code for the Windows, right? So that's mean close. But the open source is not close for everyone. Open is the reduce and the change. Open as in any place and for everyone. And this one of the big advantage for the open source. Let's do the comparison between the open source and the closed source. What is mean? Let's talk about the meaning in the first. Open source software is software that does it complete opposite and allows the user to copy and modify and delete part of the code under their own description. The user is allowed to use the functions of the open source in their own program, but will be the opposite in closed source software. Open source, closed software will be code safe and encrypted. That means no one can copy it, no one can modify it, and no one can delete some parts or use in the function in the program. And will be if anyone do that will face a legal issue because that's illegal. Let's focus on our topic. What is open source criteria? Open source, that means the source code with the right words, free distribution, about the license not research with the software, no description or the groups, no description agent field of and over. Let's talk about the history. When the open source is beginning, the concept of a free sharing of the technology information exists long for computers. The computers from the beginning was open source, and the date of the open source will be from a long time from the first computers come. Similar is an open standard research without access of advanced research projects. Agile networks use process calls request for commute to develop telecommunication network protocol, which led to the birth of the Internet in 1968. The term of open source was developed by a group of people held at Palo Alto in California. Open Source Summit is organization in April 1998 by technology publisher. How the open source work? The open source work already building by someone and share it as a free for everyone. And those developer and the users try to modify the code to be good for the program that we need to use it in. For example, one of the people need to modify the codes and modify this open source to use it in some program he building. Another one he need to copy same the open source to use it in his program as a same, and thus and this will be allowed for everyone. And the open source is actually not just the application, not just the server, not just the server, and not just the source as applications. We'll see many examples, but in the first, let's see what is the advantage. Availability of the code source. The code source will be available in the internet and for everyone. And second one does not depend on the founder. That means this code not has copyright for example, company or organization. This open source will be for everyone and does not depend on any founder. Quality and customizability in open source is better. The cost. We will see the cost of the open source will be much less than the closed source. And definitely for everything in our life we have one hand goods and the other hands we have some disadvantage of open source. In general, in general, to use the requirement to learn curve to use and get masters. Maybe some of this open code is bad formatting or bad or doing bad things in our computers. So that's mean not every code source is good and good and good code, and some people who use it. Software quality insurance process is well not transmitter. No financial incentive. Example of open source. We have many things as open source, but we will give some example of application software. Of the famous one of the application software is 7-zip. The zip is very important application to manage many files in one folder and with a small size. And I think many people use this software. It is useful and for everyone. Mozilla Firefox Open Office. Operating system. Let's talk about this open source and operating system. Actually, the operating system is very important part of open source. For example, Android. Android is one of the famous open code operating system. As now as many mobile application Android and many tablet and many laptops and computer use this operating system. And this operating system actually strong and safe as what we say in our phones. I know some people love apples and apples have the safe system for him, but Android with the time give us a strong operating system, as well as Linux. If you know this operating system, and many hackers use this system because this system is flexible and very strong. for the processing and for add and edit and modify many codes. And as well, we have many operating system is open source like free BCD and Reset OS and free DOS. A program open source examples. Let's focus here about the language. The famous language for open source is PHP. Who not know PHP? The PHP is very important language for building the web application developer and the website to create it. It is very useful and many users and many companies and organizations use the PHP. PHP, Python's Ruby, Probig and PHDL. It is very important language to use it and it is actually open source. As well as we have Surfer. The Surfer that's WordPress. This is also one of the things we use it in building web application developer. It is very important and many server is use open source. Mobile community and jumping blog and social media OS communal and open cards. Open source digital content. If we see here Wikipedia. Wikipedia is one of the important example of open source building and open source community, as well as many digital university and education resources open source digital content. License and copyright. There is hundred of the different license for open source and another choose for license and the license kind open source freedoms. Some are easy to complete with like you can do anything you like with the software on this software as long as you pay me a drink sometime if we meet. It is easy, right? And you can use this software as long as you just pay one drink if we meet. Some licenses are more difficult. See, one license is easy to get it, some license is difficult to get it. And copyleft. Let's define what is copyleft, my friends. We actually all of us know what is copyright, but what is copyleft? Copyleft is general method for making a program or this work free and require all modified and extended version of the program will be free as well. About 55 of those projects use copyleft license, but the six most common license cover about 18% of open source projects. And those examples of those common license. GNU General Public License. GNU License General Public License R2. Mozilla Public License. Eclipse Public License. Epic License. BCD License and the last one MIT License. The conclusion. Common platforms of sharing idea and put them into action by developer or the people who watch to improve the product and the software. Many people and developer try to improve the program and the code for the open source for everyone. That's one of the advantage for the open source because the close open source you cannot modify and add and try any function and you cannot use this function in your in your code, for example, or in your program. We are in an open source repository where people collect to create, protect software or technology. Based on the key of advantage of open source technology, we can finally predict that open source thrive the increasing popularity. And this is the reference what I use in my presentation. And the last thing before the thank you, I like to say to you, stay safe, stay safe, stay safe. Stay safe for your not just for yourself. Stay safe for yourself and for your family and for your community. Let's be together to survive from this virus. Actually, not just the virus. If we always